Hello, and welcome to Yossi Media's check-in and check-up with the American Heart Association. As the year closes out and we embark upon 2023, we're encouraging everyone to be purposeful about heart health. Many of us put off on tomorrow what we could do today. We hope, dream, and even pray that tomorrow will present itself as the perfect opportunity for us to do what we know we really want to do. If it started a new workout regimen, a new diet, a new activity, and many more far-off goals that never happen because the elusive tomorrow never comes. We're proposing that we start now doing the things we want to do, doing the things that we need to do to live the life that we want. Join Sybil and her guest, comedian Damon Williams and Dr. Yvonne Commodore, as they discuss their vision for 2023 with a focus on heart health. Let's start now on our vision for tomorrow. And now, here's Sybil.
And welcome to our check-in and check-up for your health. My name is Sybil Wilkes, and working in partnership with the American Heart Association, talking about what our vision is for next year, and especially as it is regarding our heart health. This is obviously the heart is what keeps us going, and this is absolutely necessary that we take good care of our heart, and that means blood pressure checks. It means exercise, the right food, and things like that, and also having discussions with our friends and family about our heart history in our family. And we have a couple of great guests who are joining us today. First of all, let me bring in my friend, and he is also a star of stage and screen. That would be the comedy stage and the screen film, as well as television screen. He is the owner of a comedy club on the south side of Chicago, and he is the one and only Damon Williams. Hey, Damon, how you doing?
Hey, Sybil, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very
How's your
well.
heart? How's your heart?
My heart is just bursting at the seams. I'm so excited to have this opportunity to have you and our expert, Dr. Commodore-Mensah, on with us to talk about this and what the American Heart Association is allowing us and encouraging us to have as far as a discussion. How's your heart, Damon?
You know, I recently had a checkup, EKG and everything, because I had a little scare because the elevators went out at my hotel in New York, and I was 25 flights. And so after those 25 flights of stairs, I thought I felt some type of palpitation. So I went in, and it turns out that I was probably just a little overcautious, but I'm glad I went and everything checked out.
Better safe than sorry, right? And who wouldn't be have some sort of palpitation? I'm no doctor, but I'm just thinking down 25 flights of stairs, even going down, as well as with some problem in a hotel, I would be anxious as well.
Indeed. So yeah, but at first I was like, let me just shake it off. But there is a history. I think my father had a defibrillator as a precaution. And so, family history is important. Plus, I just lost a couple of friends who have died suddenly from different complications, either heart related or other. And, we have celebrities that are, have passed away as well. Like Coolio had just passed maybe the day before that happened. So I wasn't taking no chances. And I advise everybody, you think about the financial ramifications sometimes, like, I don't want to spend that money, but that money will be here and you'll be gone if you don't go check on yourself.
That's right. That's right. And also, Damon, as we have talked about on our show together about our friends who have suffered from strokes and what that looks like as well, not the least of which is Tom Joyner and our friend comedian Sinbad. And so
yes.
As we are coming to the end of this year and looking ahead, we are having what we're calling a planning session with the American Heart Association regarding making our good health a reality in 2023. I dare say you are already in good shape. You take care of yourself, and you have also said you need to keep up with your young and very active wife, as well as having a young grandchild around and dogs. They'll keep you busy as well, right?
Absolutely. And, just for the sake of I want to be around to see things happen, I haven't fulfilled my destiny in my mind. And I think it's very important that you take care of yourselves for those that depend upon you and those who love and rely upon you as well.
That's right. Absolutely right. It's the best thing we can do for ourselves and for others. So today we're going to focus on the need to plan early for our health as we look ahead, and especially as we're talking to people of all ages, but really setting a seed, planting a seed, if you will, in the minds of young people in the necessity to get on the right path towards good health and make it a part of your everyday practice, not just for a short while and not just for a season, but for the rest of your life to do these things. And I dare say it is something that we need to talk about with young people, because we're seeing more young people affected by heart disease at a younger age than ever before. And so having these discussions and talking about what we can do and head problems off before they become too serious as well.
Yeah, literally, we need to get people to develop good habits while they're young. When you're young, you feel invincible. You can eat anything, you can drink anything, you can stay out as much as you want. You can avoid resting and drinking water and having good habits because you're young. But if you set a pattern while you're
Yeah.
young, it'll help you in your latter years. You don't want to wait until you're in your 40s and 50s to try to start getting on the path to being healthier, because it's already damage being done based by lifestyle. So, we didn't know some of the things that we're trying to teach people now when we were younger. So we're trying to help out the next generation for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's our duty to have that conversation. And thanks to the American Heart Association, they also have something called Life's Essential 8. This is the set of 8 key measures for improving and maintaining our cardiovascular health. This is from the American Heart Association, as I say, and two of the key measures that we're going to focus on, including blood pressure management, as well as something that I know and don't get enough of, and that is sleep.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. Yeah. It may not be the first thing that comes to mind when setting New Year's health goals, but it is key at the top of our list, these two things at least. Some things we need to talk about and remind people of, if not remind them, to inform them for the first time. Nearly 1 in 2 adult Americans have high blood pressure, and many of us don't even know it. Of those who do have high blood pressure, 75% have it uncontrolled. And it's important to know and to have your blood pressure managed. And so let us go to our expert on this and welcome in Dr. Yvonne Commodore-Mensah. How are you, doctor? It's so great to see you.
I'm doing very well, Sybil. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome back. I am so glad that you're here and that you can join Damon and me in this conversation. And I know, having spoken with you before, and you've been a guest here, talking about the necessity of having these conversations, and especially as we are looking ahead to 2023 and our visions for a good and healthy 2023. Everybody's talking about vision boards. This is nothing new. It's something that friends of mine do every week between Christmas and New Year's. They will have these vision board parties, and so for us to participate in our good health and to have a vision for what we want in this new year that will help us in our effort to be as healthy as possible. You and I have our own vision boards, and so we'll get a chance to take a look at that. Also, we want to talk about at this end of the year, and as we are spending time with our family, to have discussions about our family tree and our family medical history. Damon, mentioned his dad has had a defibrillator installed and implanted, and so I've had that with relatives years ago, but that's the kind of discussion we need to have, and especially over as we're having meals that may not be necessarily healthy for us, but certainly a good healthy eating habit will be something that we need to start a discussion about, and whether it is for just to get started, to kickstart our new and healthy 2023, but certainly with a long plan look at what we want to accomplish in 2023. So let's talk about this. And I did not give you your full credit, Dr. Commodore-Mensah. You are a volunteer expert with the American Heart Association, and you do so much more. You're a board member of the American Heart Association Baltimore and Greater Maryland area. America, an assistant professor at the esteemed Johns Hopkins Schools of Nursing and Department of Epidemiology. I can say that, but I can't say defibrillator, at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and also faculty at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Equity, a fellow and board member of the Preventive Cardiovascular Nurses Association, and as a nurse scientist and cardiovascular disease epidemiologist. Just fun to say. You have a program of research that seeks to reduce disparities in cardiovascular health among African American populations, and that is in the United States as well as around the world, correct?
Absolutely.
You really need some more stuff to do, don't you?
Yes, yes.
And for folks who are just joining us, I want to reintroduce our friend Damon Williams, who is a stand-up comedian extraordinaire, celebrating an important anniversary on the comedy stage and proprietor of Riddles Comedy Club. He is also a star of It's Sybil. You can see him weekly on my program on YouTube and Facebook Live, a star of stage, movie, and television screens, and taking his health very seriously. So Damon, we welcome you again. And as we start our conversation, let's talk, Dr. Mensah, about making that New Year's plan and the vision of a happy, healthy new year. Just overall, how important is it for us to make that plan, Dr. Commodore-Mensah?
Again, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation. And heart health is something that I care deeply about, and especially heart health in Black people and African Americans, because we know that heart disease and stroke, they remain the leading causes of death. But when you think about it, these conditions are largely preventable. Mm-hmm. There's some things that we can do to prevent these conditions, and we are going to delve a little deeper in terms of how we can prevent heart disease and stroke. And I love what you said earlier about centering health, right? So as we start forecasting and thinking about our plans for 2023 and the wealth that we hope to accumulate, the things that we hope to buy, that health should be at the center of it, because without health, we cannot work those jobs. You can't buy that car and enjoy, all of the things that we want to accumulate. So we need to really center health. And there are a number of ways we can do that. So the American Heart Association has come up with an easy way to remember all the steps that you can keep your heart healthy. Mm-hmm. And we call this the Life's Essential 8. So these are 8 things you can do to live a longer, healthier life. One of them is eating healthier. The second is moving more. So that's what you see on your screen. Mm-hmm. The third is, if you smoke, quit smoking, because stop it. There's no reason why you should smoke. There's no health benefit to smoking. And also maintain a healthy weight, and also know your numbers. What are those numbers? It's important that you know your blood pressure, your cholesterol level, your sugar level as well. And the last thing I want to emphasize is sleep. And we're going to spend some time talking about sleep. So the American Heart Association recently added this metric to acknowledge that sleep is an important determinant of your overall health, and we need more of it if we want to live healthy and longer. And so those are the 8 steps that you can take to live a healthy and longer life, especially if you want to be free of heart disease and stroke as well.
Doctor, why is it so difficult for some of us, and my hand is up here, I always took for granted that I was going to be a good sleeper. I didn't take naps in school, and my teachers contended because I didn't want to miss anything. I was always, wanted to be in the midst of all of this stuff. But when I would close my eyes, when I could finally close my eyes, I could sleep. Now I find it's not only difficult to fall asleep, but to stay asleep. And how do we combat that if it is so essential to our good health?
Absolutely. So the American Heart Association recently acknowledged that poor sleep is linked with a higher risk for heart disease. It also is associated with a higher risk of cognitive decline and dementia and other chronic conditions. Yes, so we need more sleep. But there are a number of things that get in the way. And one of them I have to acknowledge is our mobile devices, technology, right? So a lot of us have a hard time unplugging. And so if we really want to improve our memory, our overall health, we really need to get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep as adults every night. And I have to acknowledge that sometimes I struggle to meet those recommendations because I stay up later doing other things. So we do need that 7 to 9 hours. And there are a number of steps that we can take. One of them is moving it. Moving what? Moving your devices. So if you have a cell phone, move it away from your bed because it's very easy to get distracted.
Right.
Lock it. Find the number of apps that can help you to monitor the amount of time that you spend on your devices, right? And block it, right? So move it, lock it, block it. It sounds like the song Pop, Lock and Drop It. Yes. Right. So that's something to remember. So block it. So put your do not disturb on so that you don't get interruptions from friends and family late at night when you're trying to catch up on your sleep.
Right. I am very jealous of Damon Williams because I've seen him fall asleep at the drop of a hat. We don't want that to happen right now. But Damon, you obviously understand the value of a good nap. And as I said, I'm very jealous of that ability not only to fall asleep very quickly, because I always have things running through my head, doctor, and there seems to be a lifting of worries for people that like Damon who are able to take a cat nap or fall asleep just like that, and the rest of us are looking up at the clock, looking up the ceiling and trying to fall asleep, and that creates more stress, right?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of narcoleptic, so but that's not a plan. I just be like gone, and that's from my habits being poor as far as I stay up late, but then I sleep late. So my cycle is a little different than everybody else's cycle, but it's still, it's still like you say. I have developed tools like if my brain is racing, I'm worried about several things. Sometimes it's good to just get up and write a list of the things that you need to conquer the next day, so that your brain will relax and not be thinking about and be all over the place. That has helped me sometimes, and then sometimes we put each other to sleep. And that's the best sleep ever. Right. We've made a pact of that lately to try to put each other to sleep, and so try that sometimes, or put yourself to sleep. I don't know your circumstances.
Doc, let's talk about these questions that in terms of how we are taking care of ourselves and what does that look like, taking time for ourselves. And I work from home, so I don't have that outside, but mornings when I am awake, I will take the time to get up and to take a walk, depending on how cold it is, or preparing myself and getting in some form of exercise. I don't have pets, and I think that's one thing that I'm going to change in 2023, to not only to reduce some of the stress that I feel, because pets are said to do that, and I found that with my god dogs, but also getting me out to walk them on a regular basis.
Right, absolutely. And I have to acknowledge that when it gets colder, it's harder and harder to meet these physical activity recommendations. But the key here is that just moving more, right? So thinking about ways to build in short bouts of physical activity. So it doesn't have to be 30 minutes nonstop. If you're at home, you can go up and down the stairs. You can find ways to build in physical activity throughout the day. You can park farther away. So if you're going to work or the mall, find the farthest spot and walk a longer distance, right? Yeah. And thank God for technology. So there are a lot of YouTube links and videos out there. If you're watching a show, if you're binge watching a show, you can move instead of sitting on the couch and not being active. There are ways that you can still be active within your own house and keep your heart healthy. But it's a challenge that we all face. But the recommendation is any amount of physical activity helps. So even if it's not 30 minutes or 60 minutes, as long as you move more, you can keep your heart healthier.
And as far as relax, I'm sorry, Damon, go ahead.
I had a quick question. I see those commercials for the seniors, and it's a little pedal thing for their feet, but they're sitting there watching TV. Do you think those things really work, or is that something people should look into?
So I would say anything that makes your heart rate increase more than your baseline. So if that activity gets your heart racing and your heart beating faster, there's some benefit to that. And we have to acknowledge that sometimes people have physical activity limitations and they can't really do the regular exercises that many of us can do. But when you go online on YouTube and other channels, you can find other ways to exercise safely. But that may be one way that works. So as long as your heart rate increases when you're doing the activity, it's good for your heart.
Or chasing your wife around the house. That would seem to continually do the same thing, I think, having been a part of that chase a time or two. Doc, let's talk about this holiday season as we prepare and prepare our vision for 2023. And how can we best maintain our good, healthy habits during this period of time? Is it a question of scheduling all of these events and making sure that, sometimes you kind of get off track and your schedule is you're not working every day the way you have, but creating a schedule for yourself, making sure you're getting all of these things done. I have to remind myself to eat sometimes because the day just gets away from me and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get on the air and do all of this other kind of stuff. How do we maintain or keep on a schedule of good health for ourselves during these holidays?
So we know that the holidays are considered the most wonderful time of the year.
That's
but
what
it
they
could
say.
also, that's what they say. It can also be the most stressful time of the year. Why? Because we're running around trying to buy gifts and, sometimes these financial pressures, they affect us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stress during this time. But as you pointed out, Sybil, it's important that we prioritize our health and plan ahead. So if you are, for instance, diagnosed with high blood pressure or any chronic condition, it's important that if you're traveling, you plan ahead and make sure that you have enough medications and don't run out of medications. So planning for any travel. But also, if you are going to partake in these festive activities, practicing moderation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it is possible to enjoy the holidays and enjoy time with our friends and family and practice moderation. So if you must drink, do drink in moderation. If you are going to be dining with friends and family, also do that in moderation, because we know that unfortunately during the holiday period, we see an uptick or higher rates of heart attacks during the holiday period because of the level of stress that happens in this period, and the fact that sometimes people forget to take their medications.
Right.
Or they may try to get in shape quickly because they know the holidays are right around the corner, so they go to the gym and start, some strenuous physical activity, and all of those things may increase your risk of a heart attack.
And Damon, you and I think Dr. Mensah can also attest to the fact that the winter weather does not help us. And so sometimes, we'll get a lot of snowfall and then we'll get out and try to do it. And if you haven't done it on a regular, that's not your exercise, that's also something to consider in terms of being mindful of your health and how much you can stretch your capabilities in times like this.
Yeah, definitely. As the man of the house, of course, I get out there and shovel the snow. It's like, when you gonna get a snow blower? I'm like, it's kind of therapeutic for me to shovel snow. It's a physical activity, but there have been times when I'm like, wait a minute, that feel a little harder. So it used to be a time you could hire somebody down the block, but that doesn't happen very often now. But yeah, you definitely have to be careful because that heavy, wet snow has been known to take a lot of people out.
Right. And even in the fall, I was talking to my best friend and we were talking about raking the leaves. That's a good, but you got to be careful, Doc. You got to work your way up to a lot of these activities, right?
Absolutely. And I love what Damon said about listening to your body. And Damon, you also mentioned this earlier. If something doesn't feel right, you shouldn't ignore it, especially during the holidays, because people feel like, well, I'm spending time with friends and family. I don't want to go to the ER. I don't want to disrupt, the fun, but it's really critical that we listen to our bodies. If something doesn't look right, if you notice that someone doesn't look right, please encourage them to seek care immediately. And when it comes to a heart attack or a stroke, time matters. So if you delay seeking care immediately, that will ultimately lead to poor outcomes, right? But if you get care as soon as possible, the healthcare workers or providers will be able to intervene as soon as possible. So I love what you said, Damon. Listen to your body. Don't ignore it. The problem is not going to go away because you ignore it. It'll only get worse.
That's coming straight from the doctor, Damon. You guys are right on the same page.
All right.
Speaking of pages, let's talk about our vision boards and our visions for our lives, Doctor. You and I both have completed the vision board and for 2023. And if we can have, I'll go first. I'll step out there with my vision board. And it starts with how I'd like to see my life go as far as health and activity or things that are important to me, starting with yoga. And I'll tell you why I chose yoga as my form of exercise. It's something that I've grown to love to do. And also I've gotten away from it as a result of the pandemic and not really gotten back into a healthy routine involving yoga. And there are, Doctor, I think you'll agree, there are poses which are good for you in terms of heart health and doing things that can only benefit you.
Yes, absolutely. So yoga, like you just alluded to, is one of the forms of physical activity. But I think it's also important to find something that you love. And Sybil, I love that this is something that really resonates with you, that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. And for someone else, it may be running, it may be jogging. But the key is to find something that you enjoy. And then it won't feel like work. It won't feel like a burden. It's actually something that you look forward to doing.
Right, exactly. Among the other things that I have on my board, traveling more, that's definitely something I want to do. I want to, get out there and back out there among them and to try new and different things and life experiences, walking around a town or wherever I am. That's important. I did that in New York not too long ago. And that took a lot out of me because of the weather and the number of people, but still felt kind of exhilarating to have that form of exercise. I don't mind a good walk. Sleep is still my biggest challenge, Doctor, but I will say that I'm trying. I am trying. Another thing on my board is to laugh more. And I get that opportunity every day with comedians that we have on our show. Damon is a prime example. Very few people can make me laugh the way Damon Williams can. And comedians have a great way of tapping into, just generating that laugh for people. And that's real special. And Doctor, talking about eating better and having a better sense of a diet. That for me is another challenge. I don't cook and I get caught up in my day and I forget to eat. Quite honestly, I forget to eat. And then as a result, I forget to take my vitamins and other things that, that are a part of that. So I really have to make myself notes. Remember at 10 o'clock, before you have your cup of coffee, which is a very important part for me, eat something so you can take your vitamins and move on with your day. Right.
Right. And I love your vision board because you've touched on all the important aspects in terms of healthy lifestyle. So you touched on exercise. So you talked about yoga. We know that exercise is medicine. Mm-hmm. Food is also medicine. But I love what you said about laughter. Laughter is also medicine, right? We know that will help to improve your mood. So we all need a lot of reasons to laugh. And we're glad that there are people like Damon who inject some humor into every situation and help to uplift our moods as well.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's important, just to think about those things that make you happy and taking time for yourself, which is also something important. I think we need to incorporate in our day, have some, I don't want to sound trite, but some me time, some downtime, and, just kind of to have a time to meditate or whatever it is to just kind of calm you and soothe your soul.
I love that.
I think people also have to find a spirit of gratitude for and live in the present. When you live in the present and you really observe and absorb the fact that the positives in your life are there, I think that helps set with your mood, and that might in fact inspire you to be more proactive to want to live a better life and be
Yeah.
more positive and be exercising and doing things that you say. And I think the physical activity, people have to find something they like so that it's not, something you dread. So that it could be basketball, it could be bowling, it could be roller skating, find something. For me, Sybil, in the summer, it's riding my bike.
Your bicycle, yeah.
Yeah, so I found that, and I really appreciate that. Then I take in the beauty as you ride the bike. So it's a matter of being grateful and the spirit of gratitude and living in the moment.
I haven't started a real journal, but I do write down things that I'm grateful for on a regular basis, and it does kind of lift your mood and takes you out of yourself, but also makes you aware of what's going on around you, which I think is important, Doctor. I don't know if you would recommend that or give us a prescription for that, but I agree with you, Damon. Absolutely. Gratitude goes a long way in appreciating what's going on around you. Doctor, let's move to your vision board and see what you have today.
Great. So Sybil and Damon, you'll see that there are a lot of similarities in terms of travel, right? So we know that the COVID-19 pandemic has robbed us of our travel time, and I plan to reclaim my travel time and really see the world and experience new cultures and meet new people. And in terms of physical activity, I would like to learn how to swim. I still don't know how to swim, and that was my 2020 goal. And then came COVID, and so I hope to learn how to swim in 2023.
That's awesome.
Because it's another excellent form of physical activity that improves your heart health. But I also enjoy being in water. I just don't know how to swim. Another one is cutting back on my sugar intake. I have to confess.
Yeah.
I know you. Yeah, I know. So I have to confess I have a sweet tooth, and I don't drink soda. It's one of the things I cut out of my diet over a decade ago, and I can't bring myself to drink soda. But I do enjoy pastries and sweets. So that really is linked with a higher risk of obesity, which is also a risk factor for hypertension and other chronic conditions. So I really want to work on that. And the last one, Sybil, I'm with you. I need more sleep. And so I plan to practice what I'm preaching in terms of moving my device away, locking it and blocking it so that things don't interfere with my sleep, because it's something that I have to confess that I definitely need more of in 2023 and beyond.
So, Doctor, speaking of cutting out sugar, does the same thing need to be said for many of us in regards to salt in our diets?
I love that. Absolutely. So we've talked about hypertension. So we know that high blood pressure, like Sybil said earlier, affects 1 in 2 US adults. But we also know that in African Americans, the prevalence of hypertension is about 58%, is much higher in Black people. And that's why we need to take this seriously. Hypertension is what we call a silent killer. You may have it for years and not know it. So we can't trust our bodies to let us know if our blood pressure is high. So the only way to really know is what? Have your blood pressure measured. So see a healthcare provider at least once a year, but also invest in a blood pressure machine at home, a cuff at home. And we'll talk about that soon. So, but in addition to monitoring your blood pressure, watching your diet, right? So cutting back on salt. So if you've been diagnosed with hypertension or high blood pressure, it's really important that you read your food labels. And when people think about salt, they think it's only the salt that you add to your food. No, a lot of the foods that we eat contain very high amounts of sodium. For instance, bread. People are shocked when I bring that up as an example. Pizza, right? Canned foods. So these foods should be avoided, or you can think of ways to replace certain ingredients. So if you are going to use a canned vegetable, you can rinse it, and that reduces the amount of the sodium in the canned vegetable. But I'm so glad you brought up the importance of cutting back on sodium intake to lower blood pressure and also prevent hypertension from occurring in the first place.
And also fresh vegetables as opposed to the canned variety and things like that also help. But canned products in general have the sodium in order to preserve the food. Therefore, so we have to be very mindful of that. And it's kind of scary when you look at the numbers when they give you the breakdown on the labels regarding how much sodium, how much fat, how much this, that, and the other thing is in there. But when it talks about sugar and the amount of sodium in a product, you really do have to take a look at that, especially if you're concerned about your blood pressure.
Yeah, and I think even in our culture, food is such a social thing.
Yeah.
We love to go to breakfast, we love to do brunch, we love to have the big plates, and we love to tease other cultures for not seasoning their
Right.
food.
Right.
And I think we need to learn to, that you have to eat to live, and food is there to sustain you, not necessarily to entertain you. And so sometimes you have to reduce the flavor and go bland, so that you can live longer. It's just that simple. So, and also we've been taught to clean our plate and not waste food.
Right.
And
Right.
sometimes you don't have to eat as much. My mother, to this day, I don't care where we go, when we go, it was so ingrained to her that I look up and she cleans her plate, and I'm like, Mom, it's not. You could take some home. You're not going to get hit with the strap. It's like it's okay. And so I think that the way we interact with food as a culture has to be shifted as well.
And when I was a little girl, Doc, it was to be president of the Clean Plate Club. You had to eat everything on your plate. And because there are starving children in Africa.
In Africa, I was
Yes.
yes. No, I've heard that several times. But what you're pointing out is these traditions or practices and things that happened when we were younger. And I've been told that too by my mother. Like, you have to, you don't waste food, right?
Mhm.
So that's why some of us may have some of these unhealthy habits. But I have to acknowledge that in terms of consuming a healthy diet, yes, it's important, but sometimes it's pretty challenging when you think about how expensive, right? Fresh fruits and vegetables are, right? So sometimes we make these recommendations, and we have to acknowledge that people live in neighborhoods where they don't have access
Food
to
deserts, right?
exactly, food deserts where they don't have access to these healthy fruits and vegetables. So yes, we need to encourage people to change their behaviors, but we also need to change our food environments and access to healthy food, so that instead of liquor stores on every corner, that people have better access to healthy foods in their neighborhoods.
So let's talk about, we've talked about our vision boards and how we want to live. Let's talk about what the holiday means to us in terms of foods that are part of our family tables as we get close to New Year's, because there are items, that for good luck, for money, for you name it, in order to have all of these good things come to you, they talk about what we should eat, right? And so that means that we have black-eyed peas, and we have cabbage or greens, a fish, perhaps, some of these things.
Chitlins.
Oh God, there's nothing lucky about that.
How can we stop the chitlin movement?
Please, doctor, please tell us, what can we do to get off of that train?
Wow, that's hard. There are these family traditions. Yes, we want to honor these traditions, but we can find ways to replace some of the unhealthy ingredients or make some of these foods healthier. Right. So I think that's a goal. The goal is not to completely eliminate some of these family traditions, but what are some workarounds? Can you reduce the portion size? So Damon, if you visit a family member and they offer chitlins, and maybe you just, not to offend them, take a spoonful or two, or right. So moderation, right, and any foods that we enjoy eating as part of our family traditions, we can bear in mind what moderation, as long as it's healthy. And if it's unhealthy, what are some slight modifications that we can make to make the food healthier?
so that we can.
So how can you modify a chitlin? That's all.
No, that's hard.
The biggest challenge, doctor.
That's challenge. But here's the thing, though. If you look online, you'll find recipes. I tell you, and that's the beauty of the internet, that people have found creative ways to modify some of these foods that are really comforting, but may not be as healthy. So I think there are a lot of resources out there that we can learn from or borrow from.
Okay, people, Google take the chit out of chitlins.
Hashtag. J. Anthony Brown sent me a picture of plant-based chitlins.
See? It exists.
No,
it exists.
No. God wouldn't do that to us who are trying to get away from this. To give.
Well, there you have it.
I don't know. So we've had our vision boards, and we talked about making some changes in our diets with the holiday foods and things like that. If we're having greens for good luck or for money or whatever, I know that there's always the recommendation that we season our greens with turkey as opposed to ham or a pork product or what have you. So it's always thinking about the alternatives, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like I said, and I love the example you provided in terms of using turkey rather than ham, which has a higher, fat content, right? And so making these replacements to make the food healthier without losing the original flavor. And there are different ways to infuse flavors in food and still maintain the healthfulness of the food.
And Dr. Yvonne Commodore-Mensah, do you also recommend like salt substitutes and things like that?
So there are a number of products out there in terms of salt substitutes. And I think I've seen a number of products that are advertised in terms of Himalayan salt. So salt is salt, right?
Salt
if it's
is
pink,
salt.
If it's pink and it's different colors, it doesn't change the fact that it's sodium. And so again, the recommendation is to consume less than 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day. But we know that most Americans consume double that number.
Or more, yeah.
Right. So I think, if you want to consume regular salt, just consume less of it. But sometimes there are a lot of products that are supposed to be healthier, but they're not really as healthy as, they're advertised.
This is also a time that a lot of people, when we are kicking off a new way of living, a new health regime, and what have you, the time of year where people say, okay, I'm going to get healthy. And it starts with perhaps getting in touch with your personal physician and making those appointments, having the initial consultation with a doctor and with suggestions from your personal physician or practitioner as to how we might go about, and it's a partnership, I believe, go about in making the best of this new year and getting on the right track towards good health.
And Sybil, I'm so glad you also pointed out the importance of seeing a provider regularly. So we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were disruptions in primary care, but there are a lot of us who haven't gone back to be seen in terms of having our blood pressure checked, our sugar levels checked. I actually remember I met a young lady in the community before COVID. Her blood pressure was 130/80. And she was asked to keep an eye on it. And a few months ago, when we checked her blood pressure, it was 180/110. So for about 2 years, she hadn't had her blood pressure checked. And that should not be the case for anyone who has high blood pressure or has slightly elevated blood pressure. Everyone who has hypertension should have access to a blood pressure device at home so that you can monitor your condition and not wait, a year or two. But it's still important to see a provider. And while we're talking about blood pressure measurement, like I said, it's important to own a blood pressure device at home that will allow you to check your blood pressure. So the AHA or the American Heart Association has an easy way to remember this. The 4 steps, they include get it, slip it, cuff it, and check it. So get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. So get a blood pressure device, slip it on, cuff it, meaning wrap it snugly around your arm, check it. And the last step is to also share the
Share it
readings.
with your doctors. Yeah.
Share it with your doctors. So it's not enough to just check your blood pressure and write down the numbers at home, but it's important that you share the readings with your doctors so they can use that information to make changes to your treatment if necessary. If your blood pressure is still high and you're taking medications, maybe you're not taking enough of the medication, or maybe another medication needs to be added. And so remember, get it, slip it, cuff it, and check it. You got it, Sybil.
So
yeah,
Doc,
we've done the dance.
You've done the dance.
Quick
Yes,
question.
Damon.
Are there barometers or numbers that are urgent, like when a person's blood pressure hits a certain level that they should seek immediate care?
And can you talk about the numbers, the
Yes.
top number as well as the bottom number?
I certainly will. Damon is asking all the right questions. So let's start with what a healthy blood pressure is. So we want your blood pressure to be less than 120/80. That is a healthy blood pressure. So the top number is what we call your systolic blood pressure, and the bottom number is what we call your diastolic blood pressure. So the top number, a healthy systolic blood pressure, is less than 120, and a healthy diastolic blood pressure is less than 80. Now, if your blood pressure is 130 or higher than 80, you have what we call hypertension, right? And so the higher your blood pressure, the higher your risk for cardiovascular disease and stroke. Now, if your blood pressure, your top number is 160 or over 100 or 180 over 100, that is not a time to wait and see. It's really important that you call your doctor and share those numbers, because they may do a number of things. They may ask you to come in to be seen, but if your blood pressure is high, but you also don't feel well, you have chest pain, you're dizzy, right? You feel unwell. Again, you have to seek care immediately. So if your blood pressure is high and you experience any of these symptoms, including, like I said, chest pain, dizziness, arm pain, or drooping of your face, right? So thinking about stroke, right? Or weakness, these are all symptoms that you shouldn't wait in terms of seeking care. You should seek care as soon as possible and call 911, because again, the longer you wait, the higher your risk of poor outcomes.
Doctor, can you talk about the acronym FAST?
FAST, yes. Right, absolutely. So FAST, so F stands for facial drooping, A for arm weakness, S for sudden changes in your speech, and T is time. So if you see any of these symptoms, time is money, right? And time is muscle in terms of your heart. So it's important that you seek care as soon as possible if you experience any of these symptoms. And the last thing I'll have to say is that women experience these symptoms differently. So you may not feel that chest pain. You may feel more fatigue. If you just don't feel right, it's important to, again, listen to your body and seek care as soon as possible, because it's better to be safe than sorry. And I think Damon said this at the beginning of the show.
Damon, I think that we can both attest to the fact that time is very important. Our former boss, Tom Joyner, when he had a stroke, it was a matter of someone who was with him who recognized immediately. He was in the boxing ring. He was exercising boxing, and his rehab therapist saw as it was happening and said, "You're having a stroke. We need to get you to the hospital right away." And luckily, they didn't live too far from it, and so he was able to get it. As opposed to our friend Sinbad, who suffered a stroke, and because of the pandemic, it was difficult to get an ambulance or for them to get to the hospital in a timely manner, and that affected their recovery.
Yep, definitely. And we're praying for Sinbad. He's making strides. Tom is well. He's still recovering his whole physical activity, but both of them are lucky because they had strokes that could have taken them out of here. But getting proper care is important. And like I said, here's the thing, people, a lot of times you might be worried about the bill. If you go to an emergency room, they have to see you, whether you have a card or not, they will see you, or tell them you have coverage. You can't find your card, but don't worry about the bill, man. A lot of times we'll say, "Hey, man, I can't afford this right now." And I know that's a lot of people's circumstances. There are, places you can go to get free coverage, of course, for your maintenance. But I know as men and heads of household, first thing we worry about is I don't want this doctor bill. Well, you can't take care of your household if you're gone.
Right. Right. We are coming to a close here, and I do want to give both of you an opportunity. Damon, I think you've given some really great points from your perspective regarding, going to the hospital and how you should handle that and taking care of yourself so that you can take care of your family. Doctor, are there any other things we want to talk about the vision board and having that, putting that out there and keeping us accountable, making us accountable to our wishes for the new year? Anything else you want to add to our discussion and remind people or give some timely tips?
The last thing I'll share is that as we gather with our friends and family, we should have these conversations about health. And we should share information about conditions that we're diagnosed with, and we should find out our family history.
Right.
So an ideal family history goes back 3 generations. So if you don't have access to 3 generations of in terms of your family history, your immediate family, find out what your grandfather died with, your grandmother died of. And if someone's been diagnosed with hypertension, high cholesterol, and why is this important? Prevention, right? So if you know that a grandparent died of a heart attack, that information could empower you to make lifestyle changes to prevent one. And that could also help your children and their children if you're able to keep track of this information and be honest about some of these conditions. And sometimes we like to keep information to ourselves, and we don't want anyone in our business. When it comes to risk of heart disease and heart attack, we need to be more generous with information.
Right.
We should share this information around the dinner table, keep the conversation light, but be honest about, hey, what can we do as a family to live a healthier, longer life free of heart disease and stroke?
Damon, I think you're a good example of that. You don't necessarily have to wait till the holidays to have that discussion. You have, I believe, a weekly Bible session with your family Bible study, and you guys talk about other
Well,
things.
it's not biblical.
Okay.
Otherwise
That might be
they
Guy
would.
Torrey that I was thinking
Right?
about.
Yeah, they wouldn't tune in. But every Tuesday we have a family Zoom to catch up on each other because it started during the COVID and we just kept it going. And it doesn't always get everybody, but it's good to keep track of people and to find out who's not feeling well, who's going through what. And it's a village, and we've lost touch. A lot of times now, families like smaller cousins didn't grow up together and don't know each other. And you got to find a way to communicate with your loved ones and try to find a tradition or anything simple like that can keep you in touch and have those conversations.
Doctor, I want to thank you so much. I want to remind people about the Get Down with Your Blood Pressure campaign. And if we talk about getting down with your blood pressure, it's a dance. And there are steps to this. Get it, which means grab your self-monitoring blood pressure device, slip it, slide the cuff up your arm, cuff it, wrap make sure that you wrap it snugly, but not too tight, as well as check your blood pressure on the monitoring device, write it down. And if there is concern of some changes, get in touch with your medical professional as quickly as possible.
Well, it seems like we need to put that on TikTok, and then Black people will do it.
Right. Exactly right. You're right.
Make it go viral. Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Damon, I'm gonna have you do that. I'm gonna make that
Right.
your assignment. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe you can get Missy Elliott to make it a thing.
How about that?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that definitely trumps my little followers.
All right. So here we have come to the end here, Doctor. And I just, like I said, anything that we did not talk, we talked about family history and letting folks know what is in our past, as well as looking ahead to our future with the vision boards, the type of foods that we're eating, and especially about what the blood pressure is, what it means, and what we should be looking out for, and how to bring our pressure down. A number of these things we've talked about today. Anything that we've missed?
No, I think we covered it all. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I think I've also learned so much from both of you. Damon, I love your idea of the family Zoom to catch up and talk about health in general, but I think we've covered it all.
Okay.
One last question. What exactly is a last nerve?
That your mama talks about you
Right.
getting on?
I mean, while I got you here, I'm just
Oh
wondering
my
where.
goodness, you're
'Cause I'm
getting
trying
on
to, I'm trying to avoid that last nerve. What exactly? I'm just kidding.
Damon, I'm not sure if Dr. Yvonne knows what the last nerve is, but maybe her children or young people in her life understand, and they may have heard that a time or two.
Yes,
Oh,
he
yeah.
heard that today.
Yeah.
But if you have other questions, including Damon's, and maybe the folks at the American Heart Association can answer that question, Damon. But we do encourage people to go to heart.org/HBP, as in high blood pressure control, to learn more. And that is heart.org/HBP control. And to get more information, also to find out about that handy little dance that we have encouraged people to do, the National Hypertension Control Initiative, and that is to get it, slip it, cuff it, and check it. And check this out, Doctor, how can people stay in touch with you or follow you?
I'm on Twitter as Y Commodore. I post a lot of information about heart health and ways to stay healthy, so folks can find me on Twitter if they're on Twitter.
Awesome. And Damon, as far as the laughter is concerned, people can laugh their way into the new year with you. Where are you going to be?
Well, New Year's Eve, I'll actually be at the Richmond Funny Bone, but everything is posted through March on my site, DamonWilliamsComedy.com. Just go there, and it's simple as that. And we need to get you on some other social platforms because Twitter might go away with Elon Musk. But
yeah, Doctor,
he's your backup social.
Palpitations to a lot of people with his actions. So
I'm also on Instagram too.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm also on Instagram. If you search me with my name, you'll find me on Instagram.
And also, we want to encourage people to join Dr. Yvonne Commodore-Mensah and myself to get started with your vision for the new year and start and create your own vision board. Whatever you'd like to see, and especially as it relates to your good health, some changes you would like to make. Dr. Mensah has made us all feel guilty about wanting to cut out the sugar and the salt in her life. But that is definitely what we need to do, as well as exercise and doing things for ourselves and making ourselves feel better and getting out and enjoying life. Thank you so much, Doctor. It's been a pleasure to see you again. I hope we won't wait quite so long to get you back again. You are a delight, and I love the conversation. I appreciate you.
And thank you for having me on your show, and cheers to a healthy 2023.
Absolutely. And Damon, thank you so much. I always appreciate you and the laugh and the great words that you bring and observations to our conversations.
Thanks, Sybil. Always here for you. Talk to you guys soon.
And I just want to leave us all with our daily inspiration, and that is Yogi's Jewel. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. That's also from Buddha, recommended that. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. So please go out there, find some peace in your life. Have a wonderful, happy, and healthy 2023. And I especially want to wish that to my guest here. I'm Sybil Wilkes with the American Heart Association. We want to thank them for their sponsorship, as well as getting the word out there. And we look forward to continuing that in 2023. Have a wonderful holiday. Be good to each other and to yourselves. Aloha.
Aloha.